And WHCA broadcast is also online, so they are live now as well.
All right, welcome everyone to the April 2nd Buildings, Facility, and Capital Committee meeting. Sorry, I'm a little out of sort based on the Zoom format. Excuse me. I guess we'll get right started into it. Frank, do you want to start with the town administrator report?
Sure. The warrant for town meeting is in development right now. We have all the articles. We're trying to format them. We're going to do something different this year. We're not going to have a special town meeting. We're going to incorporate all of the articles in the annual. If for no other reason, then we don't have to fight for a quorum for the special, because the annual meeting requires 50 voters. John Galvin and I have been independently working numbers and then getting together on them, and we seem to be pretty much in the same place. My biggest concern right now is the impact of this virtual shutdown. State revenues, particularly lottery revenues, are being slammed, and that's where our local aid comes from. So we're potentially looking at, and I think this is a minimum number, $200,000. We're also looking at the likelihood of a reduction in collections for the excise taxes and a few other items that are in local receipts. So it could have a significant effect on us next year. We also are at risk for 9 seat cuts this year if things get really bad, because the governor always has the right to do that in the fiscal year. It's late enough that I don't know that would happen, but it's possible. So all in all, it's a real big package of joy. Having said that, the town continues to function. Most offices are on half staff or less. We're rotating people, so we don't have people working together in any numbers that would pose a problem. Some are telecommuting, and hopefully the schedule we have now is working for everybody. We still have people coming to the door who can't understand why we won't let them in. So it has been the singularly most unique situation that I've seen in the 25 years that I've been involved in the town. So hopefully we'll keep our heads up and things will settle down. We have to operate on that expectation anyway.
Let me pause you right there, Frank, and I just noticed Dan's getting on. Dan, can you hear us?
Okay, Dan's going to dial in for audio.
Okay. He's got the meeting ID and his participant number.
Well, he's connected on his iPad. He just can't get the sound working.
When you dial in, you have to put in the meeting number and then your participant number. That's probably what he's looking
he'll
for
never
now.
get that. Good point.
Oh, looks like he's typing something in though.
The help desk number.
He's probably calling Josh. Yeah, we're going to meet 15 minutes early for Tuesday.
Yeah.
And get organized.
If not a half an hour to make sure we're good.
Okay, I'm on.
There you go.
Ben, welcome.
Hey,
All
can hear
right.
you.
Just to
Leave
let
my
you know,
phone.
we're being live recorded on local cable.
Okay.
All right. The only thing that you missed was a Frank's town administrator report, which I'm not sure if it was finished, but has basically summarized the dire news from the state where he anticipates potential downfalls of at least 200,000 from the state as well as local receipts.
Yeah, Frank sent out an email to all selectmen and department heads, I think, on that issue.
Okay.
I'm well aware.
All right. So, Frank, did you have anything else?
Nothing of value.
Chairman's report. The Finance Committee is the chairman of the Finance Committee, Rick, is still anticipating our votes on the warrant, the capital articles on the warrant. I told them that based on the current scenario, we're trying our best to get them to him as early April as possible. So I would hope that our schedules collectively, we could maybe, if we don't accomplish everything here tonight, which I don't think we will, that we could schedule something, in a week or within a week or something to that effect. The Finance Committee has also voted unanimously to approve the draft warrant article for the feasibility study for the Whitman Middle School. They recommended some changes to it. One was the amount of $850,000, and the second was the funding source to be from free cash. Other than that, the Finance Committee hasn't taken any votes on the Article 2, nor any of the warrant articles. So with that said, Frank I'm not sure if everybody's got a chance to take a look at them. He sent out 2 documents. One is named the CIP project plan, and the second document labeled Capital 4/2/2020. And Frank, if I'm understanding this Capital 2020, it looks like all capital projects that were voted and approved in 2019, and whether or not money has been expended towards those projects?
Yeah, the money has been voted, whether it's completed or not. We have funded the project, so it's off our list.
Okay. And then when it comes to, okay. So anything that has not been completed and has been funded, that money will stay there until the project is funded, or the project is the department head notifies Board of Selectmen that the project is not going forward?
That's correct. And the other part of that, I sent an email to John Tuffy asking him to confirm for me that the state has funded the cost of the security thumb latches for all of the buildings, because that's money that's currently appropriated that can be redeployed.
And that's, I think that was about, that's 45,000.
Yep.
Yeah. Which has, so you have it under the 2020 column. So we have not funded that?
No, anything that is a dollar amount there. If you're looking at the Capital 4/2/2020,
yep,
everything there except 2021 has been funded. So in other words, in 19, there are $786,000 in appropriations. In 20, there are $2,344,000 $991 appropriated. Not all of that has been spent, but it's no longer in our capital fund or in our free cash. It's been appropriated. So whatever doesn't get spent will then come back. And typically we would close that money to the capital stabilization account rather than the general fund, because the intent was to utilize those funds for capital.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So just understanding this document doesn't identify what has been completed and what has not been completed. It's just what has been appropriated.
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of any of these projects on here that may or may not be completed?
Other than the thumb latches, well, actually, I can probably run the biggest numbers in the school, so I can take a look at the appropriation report.
I think
and
Fred had a question.
See if that's been spent.
Sorry, I lost my video there for a minute.
I think Fred had a question too.
Yep, sorry about that, Fred. Go right ahead.
No, and if we could also get from Ernie a copy of the grant that he filed with the state, because if I'm not mistaken, it was for a maximum of $60,000, and you may have had some carryover with another project such as the cameras, that there could be additional funds.
Well,
coming back to us.
what typically happens with us is we appropriate the money, but we don't transfer it to the schools. We hold it in our general ledger under the appropriation line that we funded. When the school expends the funds, they send us an invoice showing what they paid, and then we issue payment to the district. So the money actually sits in our general fund awaiting spending.
Okay. Yeah, when I'm looking at that document just a little bit further, there's two thumb latch appropriations, one for 45,000, another for just over almost 21,000.
Right. The 45,000 was the three town buildings. The 21 was our share of the high school.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was something about security doors.
That
he
was a
might have
different
had
article.
tied in that as well. Right,
No.
but I think Ernie had it tied in the same grant, so to speak.
Oh, okay. So then there may be a surplus there as well.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So Frank, this other document that you have, which is labeled the Whitman CIP project plan.
That's the plan that we were looking at last year. And what I did is I went through it and identified what has either been completed, has been deferred, or in the case where there's no notation, if there's no request for the money, it's still there on the plan. I thought it would help to clean up a little bit in terms of what we have and what we've done. Because a lot of the capital that we've appropriated in the last few years was money that wasn't necessarily part of the plan. So right now I'm looking at the appropriation report for the town buildings in the school district. We still are holding $14,000 for the phys ed curtain. I think that was for the middle school. We're holding, sorry, that was sidewalk repair. We're holding $25,000 for the motorized curtain. We're holding $45,000 for the door replacements on the Conley, DeVal, and Whitman Middle. And then at the high school level, we are holding, we have an unexpended balance of 14,800 for the envelope repairs at the high school. We have 17,900 unexpended on the high school gym floor. Fred, they haven't done the handicap ramp?
Over at the high school,
Yeah,
I thought that was in process
okay,
still.
because I have nothing spent on that. And of course, I have the 20,937 for the high school thumb latches. I have 14,955 for file lane repairs. And I have 134,595 to resurface the track. So this would indicate to me that, and I have 40,479 for LED lights at the Conley and Duval. So that would indicate to me that either none of those projects have been done, or the region has magnanimously decided not to bill us.
I would say it's a combination of a couple of things. Either the projects haven't been completed, and given the business manager situation in the district,
Sure.
they may be behind in a few things as well.
Yeah.
Can
and
can
then
we,
our
can we
history-
get, can I intervene for 1 second? Can we get some type of indication if, especially with the high school, if Hanson agrees to these numbers also? How do we know if we're approving something and Hanson's not?
Because we identify that when we make the votes. All of the things that we approve for the high school, Hanson also approved. That's our share.
Okay.
Well, just to add on to what Don was asking, I guess, so just for a point of clarification, what happens when the town of Whitman approves a district capital project and the town of Hanson does not?
It doesn't move forward unless both the towns approve it.
But so money gets encumbered during town meeting though, right?
Yes, so for example, last year, I believe Hanson voted to fund roadway repairs for the road leading into the high school. We did not. So either that money sits in an appropriation for Hanson, or they rescind the appropriation and it goes back into their general fund for capital. But
I guess just an audit trail of that process would be helpful, because me attending these meetings periodically, I don't know if Hanson's approving or
Well-
rejecting.
typically, unless we're on different cycles, both town meetings are making that decision at the same time. So neither one of us would know the answer to that until the town meetings conclude. So this year, we're scheduled to meet on May 4th. I question whether that's going to happen. However, Hanson has already voted to change their town meeting to June 15th. So if we were to meet on May 4th and act on requests that we were willing to support, that would trigger our appropriation, but would still be subject to what Hanson does.
And Don, part of the our next phase, once we get past this budget season, or at least past our requirements for the budget season for town meeting, the capital improvement, we're going to work on the capital improvement plan, and that will incorporate, part of the plan is incorporating exactly what you were questioning, well, both of us are questioning, what projects have money encumbered, what projects still remain open, and somehow we'll have to formulate the Whitman Hanson District School District in there so it'll make sense. So that is on the list of our things to do.
Okay.
All right. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at the draft warrant articles? Most version that we received was on. I misplaced mine.
While you're looking, Dave, one of the reasons I did the chart I did is because that version will not have any of the special articles on it, which are identified in the worksheet preceded with the letter P.
Okay. Frank, do you want to just explain to the committee what the Whitman Board of Selectmen anticipate in terms of warrant articles for the town meeting, special town meeting, or potentially anticipate doing?
I want to be sure I understand the question. The Board of Selectmen has not approved this warrant and probably will not approve it until April, potentially April 21st.
Okay.
So there's time to work the article and make any necessary changes before publication. But I am trying to put the finishing notes on these so I can send out a draft that's fairly workable. And then the board will review and approve the warrant. Once that's done and we know when we're going to meet, we'll post the warrant. Everything's up in the air right now because I can't imagine how we're going to have a meeting on May 4th. As much as I would like to move forward with that, and I think we should continue to work to have a plan together for May 4th, I don't know how it's going to happen. There's no room big enough to provide social separation. It would be crazy to put all those people together anyway, given what we know right now. The little town of, I always forget the name, small town, 8,000 people, had to hold a special town meeting. Their quorum was 30. They held it in a field behind a parking lot at the school, and 131 people showed up with their beach chairs and everything else, and they conducted their meeting. I mean, that was a fluke. I wouldn't even venture a guess at what would happen if we tried to do that here.
A virtual town meeting?
No, an actual town meeting.
Yeah, I think might have to move to virtual town meeting soon.
Yeah, well, the challenge with that is how you manage the process.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, right now, we typically have difficulty getting a quorum for the special until a half an hour after we start. And then when we gear up, we'll get maybe 200, 250 people. I can't even imagine running a 250 people conference call.
The little devices that we use to vote, is it possible that anything's available for something like that that would work on a Wi-Fi basis? And people could, I don't know, somehow they space themselves and you have pickup, 2 weeks worth of pickup where they get a 4-digit PIN number to log in or something?
Well, it's always, Fred, technologically it's possible. The problem is the law doesn't provide for it.
Yeah, the state
You
would
have
have
to be present in voting.
Okay.
I have a question. Frank, I have a question, if I might.
Sure.
What happens, what happens if we don't have a town meeting before July 1st?
We go on to a 1/12 budget, but the question that's being debated right now at the State House is, do we even have the authority to spend the money if we didn't have a vote?
Right, exactly.
It's unprecedented, so everything we do now is speculation. I mean, we could very possibly be the first community in Massachusetts to not have a school budget voted by the school committee by July 1st. It's never
I
happened.
was asked by, if I may, Dan here, I was asked by Bob Hayes if in fact we were delaying our town meeting. And I said, at this point, no, but we'll probably make that decision at our next selectmen's meeting. If we decide that that would be the proper method to go with.
Well, you know, there's so much up in the air right now. The school budget, and we're probably getting off track, so I'll make this quick. I heard part of the meeting this morning, and from what I gleaned from listening to the recording is the schools didn't vote a budget Tuesday night.
No.
What they did was they voted to reconsider the vote they had previously taken. They never made another motion and another vote. So they left the budget on the table with no vote.
Fred, were you at that meeting?
I was, and there was a bit of confusion. The chair had checked with Michelle, who had Robert's rules in front of her, and Robert's rules references it two separate ways. On one page, they say the motion to reconsider for a committee is the vote of revoting it, and in another area it says you have to revote it.
Right, because the motion to reconsider vitiates the vote you'd previously taken. And there were a couple of things wrong with that, because although somebody in the winning side has to make the motion, everybody gets to vote. And that was apparently a point of confusion. But, you know, I don't know. As far as I can tell right now, there is no budget voted by the school committee.
And hence no method.
Well, there is a method or an assessment methodology. That was voted and taken care of months ago,
Right.
so to speak. It's just the dollar amount for the budget. I believe that, it will be taken care of at our next meeting, any possible housekeeping, but there's two conflicting ways of saying it, so to speak.
Okay, that was on the list. Thank you. Okay, so the reason why this is such a important topic is that, as you can imagine, it's one of the largest line items in Whitman's Article 2. Therefore, depending on what Whitman-Hanson Regional School District requests for an assessment, approves and then requests to Whitman, will affect the available funds in Article 2 and capital projects. So that's the reason why this particular topic gets a lot of play in this committee, but also as a finance committee. Okay, so going back to the warrant articles that we last received, and Frank, I apologize, I'm confusing my finance committee documents with my.
I do it all the time. Don't feel bad.
And so, was the one-page document with just the articles and the amounts P1 through P8 and 2 through 34? Has that been provided to this committee?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's work off of that. So,
So everything above the total 2019-2020 line is historic. It has no other value. It's done. So from P1 down to 29 are the articles that are currently in the warrant that involve capital appropriation.
okay. So just for the record, I'll just go through these real quick, and just the description and the amounts and the descriptions and the amounts. Reimburse Whitman Hanson Regional School District Duval parking lot, $20,000. Reimburse Whitman Hanson Regional School District for Duval chairlift, $45,000. Fund additional to line 187. Strategic planning consultant, $15,000. Whitman Middle School feasibility study, $850,000. P6, I don't have the DPW truck, I don't have an amount. Let's see if it's on this one. Not labeled the same.
Does everyone have?
56,000.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have that document that Dave is going off of.
All right. I'll re-forward it.
Sent out an email this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank sent out 2 emails.
Right,
One
exactly.
earlier
Oh.
and one later.
So Dave, I think we're missing something though, because I think you had something after the Duval chairlift, but before the feasibility study on your list, not on the list that Frank sent.
Remember the list that I sent out, which is a landscape report, contained only the capital articles. So you wouldn't see things that weren't related to capital on that. Let me just, I have it right here. Let me send it out.
I received pay-go outline.
There were 2 recently sent, and there was 1 sent earlier.
Okay, the
So-
earlier one today I did not get.
Okay, so let
It
me.
was just before that one too.
I got one at 5. I got them both. I got 2 separate emails at 5:29 p.m.
Yeah, and one of those emails had the other attachment on it.
Right.
Oh,
There were 2 attachments on that email.
Okay, see, I have one attachment on each email.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
one of those attachments has the information, I think.
That's the one labeled Whitman CIP project plan, correct? No.
I don't have that Whitman CRT project plan.
CIP.
The one that says Marlboro CIP check-in.
I have that.
Okay. Yeah, I was going off an older one, but Frank, should I be going
That I
off?
have.
I'm going to send it right now. Let me just, let's say, new BFCC. Okay. I'm including the capital summary, which is the document that we were just talking about. Everybody has the pay-go outline, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And everyone had the capital 4220.
That's what I'm looking at, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the one. Yes, I don't care if there's a subject. This is an email that has all of the capital amounts and the dollar amounts associated with them. And, you know, if you have any questions about any of them, I believe I'm prepared to discuss them.
Capital summary.
It's the same document that
Okay,
you
so
picked up.
this is the capital summary, right?
Right.
Okay, so yeah, we already had that. Okay.
right,
Dave
so
is
if
going
you
through
go
the
to-
bottom of page 2 on that
If you go to
document.
page 2, you'll find, thank you, Justin. You'll find the list of
P1
the
through
capital
P29.
articles
Okay.
that appear to add up to about $2.1 million, not counting Chapter 90.
Okay.
So Dave, if it would help, if I just whip through them, I could do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And just in the matter of time, just try not to take too much
Sure.
time on
okay. P1, they did some work on the school did some work on the DeVal property in the back. They wanted to do a parking lot where the playground used to be, the old playground. So that's the 20,000. They expended the money anticipating our approval, and it's up to us now to pay for it. I kind of feel we have to. The second item, the reimburse the chairlift, is we had to replace a chairlift in the DeVal. It's educationally necessary, and we had no options, so they went ahead and did the work. It's 45,000. We owe them the money. P5 is the feasibility study for the middle school. We've all discussed that, I think, ad nauseum. The decision that has to be made is whether we're going to vote that money. The Finance Committee recommends the 850,000 and recommends that it be used from free cash. P6 is a new K3500 truck for the DPW enterprise department. That 56,000 includes a plow and communications. The reserve fund for fire, we're probably gonna have to talk about that, but basically what it is right now, it's to appropriate a sum of money to put in a reserve for purchase account, kind of like what the ambulance fund was. It sets aside money until there's enough money in there to make the intended purchase. The things that will be used for are things like a new ambulance, a pump truck, and capital equipment. Centralized recorder. We have to record all of our critical calls, our 911 calls, and the system can no longer be supported with what we have. So that $10,000 is necessary to upgrade that switch, that server. The software for electronic permitting, we've been kicking this around for years. It doesn't make sense not to do it. If we had it today, it would have made life a lot easier for people trying to get permits right now. The 35 kV or KVW is one of those international trucks. We bought 4 or 5 of them in 1998. We're now replacing them. We replaced one, I believe. We did a chassis replacement on another, so that's a long overdue request. Road repairs, Chapter 90, that's the purpose of the money. It's simple. And then what the DPW has asked for the last few years is that we appropriate an additional $100,000 in order to enable them to get more work done. The feasibility study for the DPW, try as I might, I can't get anyone to tell me what they spent on a feasibility study. I put a number in there, best guess, at 100. I'm hoping it's less. I'm screwed if it's more. But that's what I'm putting in there. And then this other K3500 truck for $50,685 is a enterprise truck. Same situation, both sides. The firehouse renovations we're going to have to talk about because it's a new article. It's $57,000. Sidewalk repairs at the school, it's come up every year for the last several. It will replace broken and sunken sidewalks at all 3 schools. Generators. When Ernie was in last meeting, they talked about spending $120,000 for portable generators to move around. We had suggested at that meeting that they pursue purchasing one generator for each building as opposed to having this monstrous portable. We don't have any information on it yet. So this might not be one, you would vote on tonight because we still need information. The reconfiguration of the guidance area, that is a new request, but they feel it's necessary because of social responsibility issues with the student population. Telephone equipment, they're struggling to make the system they have work with what they have. The equipment in the schools was purchased between 2000 and 2004, and it's failing. And they're having a great deal of difficulty maintaining communications throughout the schools. This is the Whitman share of the cost for the 3 Whitman schools and Whitman's share of the high school cost. We can certainly get a complete breakdown on it, but that's the number it takes for Whitman's half or Whitman's share of paying for school replacements. And capital article is if this committee decides they want to bunch things or do something different, I wanted to be sure there was a way for you to do that. So I left an article open.
On my meeting. Sorry about that. Somebody just came in the kitchen.
Quite all right. Beautiful kitchen behind you.
It's Hobart's Pond right there. Thank you, Frank. So right now, the draft, if I'm understanding this correctly, the draft articles don't include a funding source at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. It's either going to be free cash or it's going to be levy, except for the Chapter 90 money in the enterprise. And so long as we believe we have sufficient funds to do that, and we feel that these projects merit approval, it would then be up to the Finance Committee in this office to determine which fund will be recommended, and then town meeting has to vote it.
Okay.
We know we have 1.9 million in free cash. We know we have, I'm guessing, probably a little, Dave, if he's on this call, may know. Not Dave, John. I think we probably have another 500,000 in funds that are flexible.
Yeah, we also have the the ambulance fund and the motor vehicle fund that's from last year.
Right. I'm counting that in the numbers that we're looking at. So I'm saying if we were to fund all of this, we would probably still have approximately 500,000, which hopefully would go, probably the best bet would be to put it in stabilization because we may need to pull it out next year.
So John Galvin has, Fred, I'll get right to you, sorry. John Galvin has been doing a lot of work in regards to available funds for next year as part of a member of the Finance Committee. John, are you prepared to maybe, can I call on you right now just to try to give your take on what you anticipate for available funds?
Yeah, well, I think Frank kind of outlined it there in that if we were to fund the 2.1 million that's there on, at the bottom of page 2, there'd probably be about 500 or 600,000 left over. But I think there's a lot going on that we need to think about. We talked about earlier in the meeting, Frank talked about the changing in the cherry sheets, the changing in their local receipts, because people aren't going to the lottery now, people aren't going out to dinner. People are going to struggle to pay their excise taxes to the town. So we're going to have to look at some of the numbers that we were figuring to be based on last year that are going to change now because of what's going on with the COVID virus. So I think there's still a lot of discussion to be there. So would we still have 600,000 left over? Not if we lose 200,000 or 250,000 in cherry sheet numbers, or 300,000, I think we estimated. So there's a lot up in the air there. So I think we need to be careful on, there's more discussion to be had on what's available still.
Okay. Fred,
Well put.
you had something? Fred.
Unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, it took me a second. And I don't know if Josh has had an opportunity to talk to anybody over at the high school. I know we were having a brief conversation opposed to having our own service with the phone system, or doing something cloud-based, which would save a whole lot of capital dollars. And all you'd have to be basically doing is purchasing telephones. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to anyone. You're the IT expert, so to speak, much more in-depth knowledge than I have.
Yes, no, sure. I did talk to Steve quite in length in regards to this, and their biggest concern for the cloud solution is their existing network equipment that they have currently in all the buildings. I guess is from what Steve was telling me is 10 years old. Now, if that is accurate based upon what Carousel proposed, the reason why they did not propose a cloud solution is because they don't have newer networking equipment to actually support the cloud solution. Their feeling was basically, in order to do this at the minimal cost, they presented the hybrid solution to give them the opportunity to actually use their existing, some of their existing or most of their existing telephones with the new system, and also replace, if they wanted to replace some phones with newer technology phones, they could. But essentially all it was going to do is basically replace their voicemail system in addition to the back end of the phone system, if you will, which is basically the brains of the system, leaving the endpoints to be replaced at another point in time as money was available to complete the project, if you will.
Okay, because in my limited understanding was as long as we had wired Ethernet connections, you look at an office phone, you plug it in, the Ethernet cable stays, newer phones also have an out, so you don't even need another port. You're using the same connection. So we'd be responsible for buying the equipment being, basically the phones themselves, and everything else, would flow into the cloud. And you're probably looking at, I was talking to somebody who said maybe you're looking at 50, 60 grand, the moon in equipment.
Yeah, it's still a hot topic of discussion, I think. And I mean, I still, I had, questions myself as far as to why we didn't go, or at least why they didn't propose the cloud options. And they did provide a document that I'll send to you shortly in response to Steve's question, because he had sent a message to the Avaya team and asked them to put together a cloud solution based upon, our recommendation from the last meeting. And they had sent over, a document that I probably should have forwarded to you before the meeting, but basically explaining their reasoning behind why they proposed the initial solution versus the cloud solution, with a couple of pointers, basically being one was the network equipment that they currently have and across the district is, older. And their feeling were it's if you had newer equipment in there, then they would move to the cloud. But the bigger concern was the fact that you have a lot of phones across all the schools, and you'd have to replace every single one of those phones, which you would have to do if you went with a cloud solution. You'd have to obviously replace them with digital IP phones in order to actually use the cloud.
It was my understanding that the phones are so old they keep breaking, they can't even get parts for them, so that need to be ultimately replaced in the very short future anyways.
I agree, and I mentioned that as a concern myself. I mean, obviously, you know, if the existing system is aging, you know, what good is the actual endpoints if in fact they're, you know, much older, and you're not going to really be able to sort of participate, if you will, in the newer you know, technology as far as the new solutions that are available and the new communications that are, you know, the opportunity is there to obviously expand this to do a lot more with the system, but you know, a lot of those sort of features you can't be used with the older handsets.
Yep. So, you know, the way I look at it is you're going to have to replace anyway, so you might as well toss that on top of whatever we're getting for, and it's just costing us a ton of money. But, all right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we brought that up, and I mean, it's my inclination myself to try and maybe more of that battle within the school district itself too.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not at a point where I'm. You know, I think we're safe to say that we're going to vote on this particular article. I still, you know, again, there's still some questions in the air, obviously relating to what you just, you know, talked about as well. And I'm still going back and forth with Steve, and I think, well, hopefully we'll come up with a, you know, a full answer on exactly, you know, what avenue is best. But at this point in time, there's just so much involved in that whole implementation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your advice and input.
Yeah, Dave, I have some information on the DPW.
Yeah,
If I may?
hold on. I just hold that thought for a second, Dan. I'll come right to you. So just to stay on this topic real quick, in the layman's viewpoint, it's my understanding that essentially the phone system needs to be upgraded. The proposal that's out there now, in which they're asking funds for, is a smaller step towards a future endpoint of upgrades. Is that it in a nutshell?
It's sort of, I guess. I mean, really, the initial proposal they received was, in fact, a proposal that would provide, you know, the replacement of the sort of the brains of the system, if you will, and allow them to. It creates a hybrid model, so they're able to actually, you know, go to the cloud or go to the next level, if you will, but also provides them with the ability to obviously replace the existing system at an economical cost, based upon, obviously, we don't have $500,000 or whatever it might be to really go and fully do the entire thing. I mean, if, you know, Fred's mentioning $50,000 to $60,000, but you know, I'm not sure how relevant that is to, you know, such a large implementation. And it may be there's, you know, certain points that we may be missing, or you know, I just don't feel that you know, $50,000 may cover it. I mean, again, I could be wrong, and that number may just obviously be a ballpark number, Fred. So I'm not throwing you, you know, under the
no, it's a ballpark. It's you know, okay, how many phones do we have times X amount of dollars per phone, and then you throw in a few extra dollars for contingency and other, you know, things you might have to do, you know, to make the system work. It's what I would hope to be a good guesstimate.
Yeah,
you know,
no, I mean, we're definitely seeing, you know, some organizations and schools and you know, municipalities moving to the cloud. But again, it's just, I think we really still need to define a few things before we go ahead and pull the trigger on this one, based upon, you know, the questioning that's going on. So.
Okay. And
Can I just intervene one real quick? So the schools are shut down for the rest of the year, right? Should we?
Not officially yet, but
unofficially they are. Should we really dig into this and understand our full cost for everything before we even vote on this? Should we shelve it, in other words?
Well,
Can I address that?
Sure.
We
can't see
you have to remember is right now, and this is part of the screwy thing that John Madden addressed. We are planning for a budget that starts July 1st and won't be fully evident as to its effect until the following June 30th. But the decisions we make now determine whether we're going to do something next year. If we don't act on the articles before us, there is no chance anything can be done in those areas in 2021 because we haven't made the appropriation. So I think what we want to keep in mind is we know there's a situation that needs to be remedied. We know that electronic equipment that's 15 and more years old is approaching the stage where it's useless. I mean, Josh and I went through this. We built the network in the town hall in 2004. And over the last 5 years, we've replaced every computer, and those are ready to be replaced now. So there is a need. How effectively they address that need is a decision the school has to make, and then we have to decide whether or not we're willing to fund that decision.
And I think that's the key question, Frank, is what is the fund? I mean, how much are we looking for? Right now, I hear Fred saying 50 to 60K. I hear Josh saying that's not going to do it. So it seems to me that we don't know what the number is.
Well,
Can I clarify my position? I'm not saying that it's 50 to 60. What I'm saying is I think that the cloud idea has to be vetted perhaps a little more or a lot more thoroughly before it's decided that that's not a viable solution. And, you know, maybe it's a solution that, yes, we know we need the equipment. We can go on a cloud-based system for a year and try it, but the equipment could still be utilized with the new system. If we ended up saying, okay, that's not going to work, now we got to go back to what we were originally doing. But I almost feel like we really need to push to vet it that much more thoroughly. And unfortunately, I haven't had success at the school level. Maybe
Well,
we'll push back.
we have a number of 180K. Where did that come from?
Right, that came from the actual quote, basically based on the quote that I sent you. Everyone should have received the email with the quote for the telephone system. If you haven't yet, you know, you can certainly check your email, and the quote is actually in there. The quote itself is.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I don't remember the dollar
You
values
just
for
sent
each
that,
thing.
correct?
Yeah, the quote is like in excess of $300,000. $179,000 is Whitman's share of that cost, but you know, that again is not replacing the actual endpoints, the actual phones within the system. I mean, there's a lot more complexity to this system because there's integration between the actual paging within the buildings, and there's certain things that are a bit different and would have to obviously be adapted to any type of cloud situation if they were to move to the cloud.
Okay.
one comment I'll make, we replaced the phones in the town in 2000, it was 2012, Josh?
Correct.
And just to provide for the town hall, the police station, and the fire station with switch controls was somewhere in the area of $57,000. And we also had to go out and buy switches and VoIP phones for the voice over internet protocol to provide communications with those other departments like Council on Aging, DPW. The fiber piece of it's very expensive, but it's durable. And the problem with buying a system or just a set of phones and going into a cloud-based service is, at a minimum, the school's going to have to upgrade its service just for bandwidth and support for the system. I think it's worth looking at the options, but one way or another, they're going to need to do something.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, regardless of which way this is done, the telephone project needs to happen. Regardless of whether it is cloud or it's on-premise equipment, it's something that needs to be done. It's just a matter of obviously fine-tuning to make sure which direction I guess we're going based upon the comments that we're dealing with.
Can I ask one more question? So the 179, this is basically for the servers, the switches, everything that the distribution right now, the infrastructure wiring that you have can plug into. Is that basically sums it up?
Correct, exactly. There's basically additional servers that provide the resources necessary to make everything work, and essentially
Probably faster switches and new servers.
there's licensing costs behind the scene. This does not include network equipment. So no, there's no network, equipment that is used to connect everything together. This essentially is just the phone system, and licensing costs for the phone system itself.
So it doesn't include the end user, the actual physical phone on the wall or on the desk.
Exactly.
It includes everything else.
Exactly. So essentially, the first initial proposal was basically just providing the brains of the phone system, if you will. And the reason they did that is obviously to utilize their existing phones that they currently have, the analog and digital phones, instead of converting everything over to the IP phones and replacing every endpoint, because they have so many phones across all the buildings. They felt that this was obviously the more cost-effective way to do the initial replacement. They can certainly,
the phones that we have right now, will they interact with this new gear?
Yes, the current phones they have right now will work with the existing gear.
All right, so it's a cog in the wheel. It's a rung on the ladder to get to where you want to get to. Okay.
Yeah, I think that what they were trying to do is, instead of proposing a $500,000 system, if you will, to replace everything, they wanted to just obviously do what they needed to get done in order to get it done. But that doesn't, again, it leads into a different conversation. So if you look at the cloud, they didn't really get another quote for a side-by-side comparison like Fred was talking about. And I think that's what Fred's initial comments at our last meeting basically stem from the fact that it would be nice to get a side-by-side comparison to see. Because essentially when you have to do this again 10, 15 years from now, there's going to be the significant cost again, which again, looking at this quote here is $300,000. It may cost $500,000 or $600,000 10, 12 years from now. So if that be the case, and we're going outside to a cloud solution, really the only thing that you're going to have to worry about internally would be your phones. All the other expenses would be obviously incurred by the provider that's providing the services.
Last question, and I know I've already said that, but this is the last question, I promise on this. Does this include the middle school also?
Yeah, so this the quote that was presented includes replacement system for all the buildings. So essentially, our cost obviously is just for the high school portion, the Whitman Middle, Conley, and Duval.
Is that wise doing the middle school? So it looks like we're looking to do something with that.
Well, if you bear in mind, the SOI requires us to come up with a feasibility study. That feasibility study is going to take at least a year. There's going to be another year lost in planning. Then they're going to break ground. So looking at the high school, we started in 2001. We opened the building in 2005. I have no reason to think the middle school is going to be any different. So they still have to punch in for 4 more years.
The consensus is that we should include the middle school at this point.
I think you have to.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion.
I'm just posing the obvious questions, that's all.
No, that's good. I'm glad questions are being asked. I mean, it's always good to get the answers out there too.
If they did choose a cloud-based system, the infrastructure I think that you'd be putting into the school would be minimal. In the phones, if you had to buy equipment, you could always take those into a new building, I would think. Would that be accurate, Josh?
Yes, correct. Yeah, if you replace the phones and you had IP-based phones, then yeah, they can go to any building. Yeah, you wouldn't be I mean, if you went that route, obviously you're not going to have to invest in equipment that basically would have to be moved to the new site. All you'd be doing is basically moving your phones and you'd be up and running, in a new building.
Okay. I'm sorry, took so much time on that.
No, that was good. Any further questions on that issue? All right, Dan, you had some information on the DPW?
Yeah, I talked to Bruce Martin. As far as Frank was right. As far as the trucks are concerned, they've been put off for the last couple of town meetings just to hold back. So those trucks are really starting to fall apart. I really looked at them. Second of all, as far as the feasibility study on a new building, Bruce Martin talked to another DPW, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of it, but they just built a new DPW building about the size that we're looking to work on. And And the amount of money that they paid is a lot less, I think, than what we were looking at. And I'm wondering why, do we really still need a feasibility study? And can we take the plans from the other town and build basically the same DPW building that they have? Bruce said it worked for him. And as far as the old metal building in back where the trucks are parked, he said, forget about that one for now. That can be fixed here and there with some small monies, cleaning it up and maybe doing some repair, maybe sections of the roof that they can get done piecemeal instead of taking the thing right down and building a new one. He said that'll save us a lot of money. So I'm just wondering, maybe Bruce needs to be talked to find out exactly what it cost that other town to build that DPW that he said would work for Whitman, and what process they went through, and maybe we can capitalize on that other town and not spend the money in our town. Just a
Okay,
thought.
Dan, the one thing you have to remember, the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, has a standard clause in every contract every architect signs. And it says, we don't own the plans, they do. And you cannot take plans that were designed for a project and then say, oh, we're going to use these, not without ending up in court. We didn't even own the plans for our police station. And while I don't like it,
Yeah.
that's what we have to live with. The feasibility study has to take in a number of things. We have done some ground testing on our own.
Right.
No architect is going to accept that work in planning and building a building because he would be responsible for any failures. So they're going to come in and it might provide a guide to where we're going to go, but they're going to do the same thing. They're going to do the same site work. They're going to have to come up with a design. We're going to have to equip the building. And in order to present that project to town, I mean, we're going to spend $850,000 to do a feasibility study for the middle school to explain to town meeting why we need a building. How would you manage to do that with the DPW without doing similar work?
Well, one thing is the DPW was built in '55. The middle school wasn't built it's not that old.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's going to cost that
but
much more.
Huh?
It's going to cost that much more. I
Right.
guarantee you we won't see anything south of $70 million for a new school building.
Wow. Well, just a thought. I mean, why? You mean to tell me that we could not use the plans for a previous building in another town?
Nope.
How come the rest of the state's building a high schools like Whitman and Hanson?
Because
school.
the architects are using the initial idea that we presented and designing their own buildings. The MSBA adopted the Whitman Hanson Regional High School as a model building, and it was used for, I think, 3 or 4 years. But they still couldn't just take those plans, like Foxborough built a building. They couldn't
Right.
take our plans and build in Foxborough. They had to do their own design.
By the way, your block is blacked out, Frank. We can't see you.
That's because I didn't necessarily want you to see what I was doing.
I didn't know if you still had your shirt on or not. Just kidding. I mean, it's just something I'm thinking about. I mean, if there's another building out there that we could possibly use their plans and it will fit, it may be cheaper.
I mean, it's a great idea. It's not legal.
Okay, just a thought. I'll have to talk to Bruce again.
It's funny. I know he was talking about the, I can picture the building now. And I have chased that guy down probably 5 or 6 times. We're never able to connect. The design is different because of what they built. it wasn't just a DPW.
Yeah.
It was there was a smaller effort put on the DPW building, and more of the work was done on the park and the grounds and a common area for the town. So, you know, I don't know. We could probably get it done for less. I just would rather not have to come back and say we get strong.
Yeah, true, but it's something to look into, I guess. Okay, my thoughts.
Okay, so
I see you got a partner, Fred.
She wanted to participate in the meeting. She says it's a public meeting, so.
You feed that thing raw meat?
Huh? No raw meat for her.
so when we started this budget season, or even when we ended our last meetings of the last time we met, budget season, last time we met, we were in consensus that we're going down two paths. One is the capital path in terms of recommending capital projects for the town of Whitman, and also is the financial portion. Is it responsible for this committee to recommend something that we don't have funding for? So, in the reason I'm kind of framing this next statement, and my next question to the members of this committee is do we think that it's prudent at this time to make any votes of capital requests, knowing that we still have some moving parts in terms of the availability of funds?
I think we vote on the low-hanging fruit, the things that we just talked about. Replacing the telephone equipment, the feasibility study for the middle school, these things that we know we should be doing. Some of the sidewalk stuff, low dollars, maybe we do that. Some of the things that we can postpone, we look to postpone. But I think we've got to move forward and stay operational.
Right.
Well, I think
My opinion.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
my opinion is that we look at some of the articles that we've been putting off, such as equipment, that it will cost more to repair or go out and rent if they fall apart and we can't use them anymore. I mean, I think we should look at, like I'm saying, the DPW trucks, some of that equipment that is just needs to be replaced because we've been putting it off year after year after year, and come up with the numbers and see exactly where it gets us. Some of the other issues that can we put off or wait and get closer to town meeting, leave the article there, but on the warrant, but pass over it when we realize that the funding isn't there, and we prioritize the items that we really need. I mean, I know, we want to do a feasibility study on the middle school, but that $850,000 coming out of capital, I mean, we're not going to borrow that. That's coming right out of capital, right, Frank? Right out of stabilization or wherever.
If we follow the recommendation of the Finance Committee, it is coming out of free cash. And that was also the recommendation of the Budget Override Committee. Now, I grant some things have changed since then, but we have a limited opportunity. If we believe and know that we have to replace that school building, it's like when we did the high school in '95 and failed, and then did it in 2001. The only thing we're sure of is it's going to cost more.
Right.
We had a $27 million project in '95. I think it was '95. And we ended up with a $60 million project in 2001 that actually gave us less than what we were going to do in 95 for 27 million. So it's frustrating, but we have to look ahead. And the issue with the middle school is the MSBA participation. If we don't act today, we're off the list and we have to start over. Full disclosure, I reached out to a legislative group that was asking questions about a week ago, it really seems like a month, about impacts of this pandemic and what might be helpful to us financially, what were our needs. And I asked the question, is it possible that given the circumstances and the cloud hanging over every community right now, that MSBA would freeze things for a year and give us time to move forward? I didn't expect the answer to be yes. I have not received any answer, but the likelihood is either you act or you step aside. So we've got to face that reality that there's a timeline that requires us to provide to MSBA a confirmation that we began the process for the feasibility study with a vote for funding by June 1st. If we don't, we're out of contention.
Okay, if we do the feasibility study for 850,000, and when it comes to an override vote, and the people say no,
Then we're where Hanson was when it tried to build its building.
right, exactly, right? So, and you know, I'm just saying, money to the state is really tough right now with the situation going on. And they're going to have the funding to give towns who want to build new schools or any project. They may turn around and say, well, we can only give you 30% of your project at this time because of the loss of funding. Maybe in 3 years, they can go to 50% of the market. I don't know. But how long is a feasibility study? How long is it good for? If we have it done and we spend 850,000 and we just said, okay, the state does not okay our middle school for 3 years, is that feasibility study still, still good?
Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. If we submit a feasibility study, we got an approval to move to the next step. If you think back to the high school, the commitment the state made was we will give you 72% of your cost, but you have to wait until the funds are available. They changed midstream and decided to pay people up front, which was a godsend for us.
Right.
But the initial plan, when we voted that high school, we voted to tax in advance for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we voted to set up a mitigation fund, a reserve fund for cushioning the impact of the bond, because we didn't expect to get state money for 7 years. They surprised us and did well. But that could be what we're looking at, waiting a couple of years to get the money. And then the challenge is you really have to bite the bullet for that year or two that you're waiting.
Okay, that being said, if we appropriate and hold off the 850,000 for the feasibility study for the middle school, does that mean that we do not have to do that study until the state says they will okay the school, or we're going to spend it anyway?
No, you don't get an okay until you submit your plans and they review it and they agree that it's the appropriate way to move forward.
And that's what the 850,000 will accomplish.
The 850 will get us demographic studies, cost studies, and all of the analyses we need. One, to go to town meeting to present the project in an intelligent way. And two, to go back to MSBA and say, okay, of the alternatives, this is what we choose. And those choices are given to us by MSBA. We have to look at whether a renovation or a new school is the appropriate way to go. And they identify for us what they will and won't fund. So
And-
our job
right.
is to do it the right way.
Now, that feasibility study, will it be both encompassing as far as either a new building or renovations
Yes,
or repairs?
yes,
Or is that strictly for a new building?
it's for both.
Okay.
The feasibility will determine what the best approach to taking care of the middle school is, whether it's a renovation or a new building. And it will also give us the cost, the design cost for that new building. Fred?
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
I
they,
just
if they
wanna-
determine that a
Bring
renovation
that
is
over, John.
appropriate,
Sorry,
Sorry.
okay,
Fred.
if they determine the renovation is appropriate, they'll say, we'll pay for a renovation, we won't pay for a new building.
Right.
That's part of what the feasibility study does too. But the way we're in line right now, if we get out of line, God knows what we'll spend over the next 5 years, 10 years before you'll get back on the project list, number one. And number two, I mean, the building's in disrepair. There's a lot of need there.
Okay.
So.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, Frank, I'm changing the subject here. Frank, could you outline which articles would get funded by the enterprise fund?
I
I
can
would,
best guess. What I would suggest, yes. Let me pull it up.
I would think that any enterprise funded articles would be something that you could vote on tonight.
Would certainly make sense. Give me a second to, okay, here we go. All right, starting with the labeled P projects. P6, the DPW enterprise truck, 56806, will come out of enterprise. The facility study will come out of enterprise.
That's 22, item 22,
Yes.
100K.
And okay, I don't know why that number is there.
The two trucks?
No, the other truck is it comes out of the general fund.
I thought you said 23 was a possible enterprise fund too. Article 23. No.
Well, if I did, I misspoke. That one,
Okay. All right.
that one's for
So
the
just,
DPW.
so just the two articles then. But still, that's 156,000 to 157,000.
Exactly.
Chapter 90, the road repairs.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. That's got its own separate funding source. So that would be another one. Yeah.
And then the
That's Article 20.
right.
Article 21 does not. That comes out of
That comes out of levy
capital. Yeah.
or free cash
Right.
or somewhere in the general.
But yeah, so 20 can be voted as well.
It can.
Yes, because that's Chapter 90 funds. That comes from the state.
So that's $500,000 off the books. Well, not off the books, but
Yeah, yeah.
off of the
Part
free
of it,
cash.
That's money that's not coming out of
Free cash.
our yeah, exactly, free cash or our other revenue sources within the levy. Correct.
And then bear in mind that one of the things that we're working with in order to fund everything this year, let me just look up this number and be sure I have it. As of March 30th, we have $894,000 in the Reserve for Appropriation Ambulance account. Whatever we don't spend out of that this year will end up either going, well, actually, the money that comes in after town meeting until June 30th will end up going into the general fund. And
General
it'll be-
fund or free cash?
Well, it'll be free cash because
Right.
it'll close to the
Okay.
general fund. And then we have 35.7 in motor vehicle fines.
And remember, we also have 512,000
Yep.
in the indirect,
And
indirect from the enterprise fund that's going in.
correct, to move to, I mean, safely, we could safely fund as long as it makes sense to do the requests. We could safely fund them. But the other question becomes, what about those items on the list that we didn't address, that we didn't get requests for? If you look at the worksheet I sent you, PAYGO, there are some there were some articles on that, some requests that have not seen the light of day. And one of them is that roadway going into the schools. I don't think it's critical enough to make that kind of commitment, but we may have to put more money toward that. Then the big issues, let me just open it. My computer is not cooperating. Think of what we deferred. We deferred 120,000 at the middle school. I wouldn't even think about that now. We haven't talked about the fencing at Memorial Field because no one asked for it. Josh has been notably silent on capital projects in an effort to cooperate with us. But there's about 50,000 in there that we really should be looking at. 35 for computers, 15 for SAN. You know, those are all things that we're going to have to address.
Yeah, we haven't put any money in technology stabilization, and I can't remember how long.
Not since we updated the core.
Yeah, exactly. And that cost us $100,000. So that money was basically pulled out of technology stabilization instead of being raised and appropriated.
Frank, also there are articles that require funding outside of, in the draft warrant, outside of P1 through.
Correct.
Do you know what the total value on that is?
I can tell you in a second. Let's see.
You didn't get a request for the rooftop unit at the high school?
It's not on the capital plan that the school, it's not on the request that the schools submitted, Fred.
Yeah, I could have sworn we had voted that.
Well,
Right.
you know, you may have requested it last year and
Yeah.
it may have been deferred. But that just means it goes away. We don't keep a warrant article open. It dies.
Right.
Okay, here it is. I just have too many files open. Okay, here we are. So we have 30 currently available. John, do you remember what our total available number was? You know,
I had total available as a little under 3 million. But that was before we started discussing the cherry sheets being changed and we took away about 450,000 or so based just on money we
Right.
weren't going to get from the state and money we thought we were going to not be able to collect excise and local receipts. To answer Dave's question, there looks to be, there's some motorcycle, there's some police numbers that are not on here.
Right.
About 26,000 for
Yep.
motorcycles, 10 for tasers, 3,000 for shotguns, and then there's another 30,000 strategic planning, and also a consultant, Article 9. So what do we say? It'd be another 50, 60,000 that's
Yep.
not on Frank's list.
Correct.
So based on that, that puts us right up against our number. If we thought we had an excess of about 3 million, take away the 300,000 on the cherry seats we're going to lose, take away our estimated 100 to 150,000 on local receipts we're going to lose, all because of the virus, we're basically right up against it. So I think we do need to, before we go ahead and vote all these capital articles, we really ought to get a better understanding of how our revenue forecasts have been affected.
I agree, John. If you look at the total numbers, and it's not so bleak that there's nowhere to go. I mean, we do have 349,000 in capital stabilization. We have 2.7 million in stabilization. So we're not so at risk that we can't appropriate based on what we're sure to be our numbers.
Right.
You're shaking your head, Dan. I'm not suggesting spending that money. I'm
Okay.
simply saying that if we guess right and we reserve, we hold back on what we spend so that we spend what we believe to be the money available without with a safety net, and we're off, we still have a little room. I'm not suggesting we have a lot.
I don't want to take all of regular stabilization.
No,
That-
I'm not talking about that.
I mean, based on what I've been looking at, that all of those stabilization accounts aren't in play at all. What
Right.
we're talking about is, we got lucky this year in the way that I shouldn't say lucky, but in the way that we're switching over based on John Madden's recommendations.
Yeah.
We've freed up some one-time capital coming from the ambulance fund, coming from the indirect costs from the enterprise fund, to the tune of close to over $1.5 million, but that's only available this year. It's not available next year. So if we use it, if we don't use it, it's going to go to free cash. But right now we're at almost 2 million in free cash. We've already identified close to 700,000 going into free cash once the year closes from the indirect fund, and also from the other lines we were talking about earlier in the meeting. So, do we want to spend all $2 million in free cash that's there now? No.
Probably not.
No,
Okay.
but we could probably get, 1.3 or 1.5, in my opinion. I mean, the other thing, our local receipts, we're estimating our local receipts differently this year. We've only taken 88% of what we've done in the past. In the past, we've estimated almost all of what we've had. So we do have our cushion there, in that, I think that cushion's actually going to be used because of what's going on with, the virus. So that's coming into play already with our revenue forecast. So
We have maybe an 8% margin, and I think we'll eat all that up.
yeah, I do too, especially in the big numbers. Though looking at the numbers that came in up to, through March, I think we had a pretty good lead on the excise. I think we had forecasted about 1.9 in 2020, and we have about 1.4 already paid up. So hopefully some of that comes in. We'll have to see. I mean, it's scary. I mean, the state is really where the issue is going to be, and not getting what they said that, because not only is it going to be the towns, it's going to be the schools. And that's the biggest thing that I heard in your meeting last night, Fred, was that we don't know, we were told what we thought we were going to get, and that's out the window now.
Right. The one good thing as far as forecasting with the schools, we're in the hold harmless.
Right.
So we're not looking at any great shakes of additional Chapter 70 funding. The funding that we were looking at hopefully increasing, regional transportation, with the Student Opportunity Act that came out with some additional circuit breaker money perhaps, and some special ed transportation at 25% reimbursement once you hit a certain threshold. Those aren't mega bucks dollars for us. So when the state cuts back, it's not going to affect us all that much.
Oof.
In comparison to,
Good point.
you know, was it Brockton, you know, some places saw like a $5 million windfall with the Student Opportunity Act, and, you know, they're not going to see it. You know, so, you know, sometimes we'll end up with the $20 per student. I'd be shocked if we got more than that. But that's what we figured in our budget, you know, from House 1. So it sort of, you know,
Okay.
pans out, I guess. At this
Well,
point.
that's that at least makes you feel a little better that we're not going to see the loss of Chapter 70. I forgot about that. That's a great point. The hold harmless. They're stuck with us.
Yep.
So I think I might have heard conflicting information. Let me ask the question again. Is it the will of this committee that we move forward tonight with voting articles, or do we want to wait? And if we do wait, when, you know, I would hope we would be able to, this committee would be able to meet fairly soon in order to make, you know, take that vote. So I don't know how to get a go ahead, Josh.
Okay.
So I think we can at least move to vote a couple of them that we've identified. And beyond that, any of the maybe the larger or more questionable ones, we can wait for more information. Like, I want to hear more about the phones, based on our conversation earlier. But I think we can at least move some of the easy ones, some of the things that maybe the schools have already expended and we need to reimburse them for. Yeah.
Okay, with the show of hands, does that seem okay for everyone?
Yep, works for me.
All right.
Great.
All right. Let's go ahead and move forward. So, yeah, you know, if you don't mind, I'll take these out of order. All right, P1 through 28. 29.
Dave, remember you are required to take a roll call vote.
Yes. Thank you. We'll take the easiest one in my mind is P20, roadway repairs, Chapter 90, DPW of
355,055.
thank you, Dan. $300,550.
$355,055.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Frank.
Second.
Second by
I'll
Fred.
second that.
Second.
Okay, so a roll call vote. I'll announce the names and we'll go that way. Don.
I approve.
Justin.
Yes.
Dave Cordero, yes. Josh McNeil.
Yes.
Frank Lanham.
Yes.
Aaron Taylor.
Yes.
Dan Salvucci.
Yes.
Fred Small.
Yes.
Okay, so that's unanimous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0, 0 for number 8, 0, 0. Okay. All right, that was the easy one. Well, if during the Finance Committee meeting, Ernie Sandlin of the Whitman Hanson Regional School District emphasized timing issues, and he based on those timing issues and based on the value and how it affects other decisions on votes for capital articles, the Finance Committee decided to take vote on that. And I think if you don't mind, I'll take that same approach here, for the feasibility study. I think that's a you know, it's on the matrix. It's been a high priority issue. Timing is an issue, and it will allow the school system to the school district to then move forward with preparing, I guess, at best. So I'll entertain a motion for a vote on P5 feasibility study for the middle school for $850,000.
So moved.
I'll second that.
With a funding source of free cash? Are we naming the funding source?
Right. So
You're voting to support the article. The ultimate decision on funding may change when it goes through the Selectmen and Finance Committee. But our vote here is to recommend the approval of the warrant. And then we do have to make a report to the Board of Selectmen on that.
So we're not actually approving the funding source at this point?
No. I'm suggesting that free cash is the way to go. That's what the Finance Committee has indicated it intends to recommend. So when the warrant is printed, it will contain the request, the source of funding, and the recommendation of the Finance Committee. The presumption is the selectmen are recommending it because it's on the warrant. The question of where the funding comes from is usually something we work out prior to posting the warrant, after we've assessed all of the items that are being funded and what makes the most sense financially for the town. It's likely it's going to be free cash, because the only other option I see would be to go for a capital exclusion, and I think we beat that one to death.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead with the I'll go ahead with the roll call. Fred Small,
Yes.
Dan Salvucci,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Frank Lanham,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Dave Cordero, yes. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Don Essen.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. P5 800. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend P6, the enterprise truck for the DPW.
Sank my battleship.
Second.
I'll second that.
That's
Dan
a second
Salvucci,
from
second.
Fred and a motion from Fred, a second from Dan. So the vote is, I'm sorry, the vote is to, the motion is to, what?
To support the request for 56806 to purchase a DPW truck
P6.
for the enterprise system.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay. We'll take a roll call vote. Justin Evans,
Yes.
Dave Cordero, yes. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Frank Lanham,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Dan Salvucci,
Yes.
Fred Small,
Yes. Don
Essen.
Yes.
It's unanimous, 800 for P6 DPW. Okay.
Number 20.
Number 20.
Did that
Go
one
down.
already.
Keep going.
20's already done.
Okay.
I'd like
22 is the other enterprise fund.
Right. Oh, that's the other one.
I'll let them entertain a motion for Article 22.
So moved.
Motion.
Fred,
Second.
the motion.
Second.
Dan has the second. And any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Let's see, I'm trying to mix this up a little bit.
This is for 100,000, correct?
Yes,
dollar
this is
value
to
is
recommend
100,000.
feasibility study at 100,000. That number could go down.
Good.
It all depends. It all depends on how much reliable information we have by the time we're ready to post.
Okay.
Okay, roll call vote for 22. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Frank Lyman,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Dan Salvucci,
Yes.
Fred Small,
Yes.
Don Essen,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Dave Cordero. Yes, unanimous, 800. Okay.
Why don't we talk a little bit about some of these that are off the wall? By off the wall, I mean they weren't present before we started this budget cycle. So item 27 is a request to reconfigure the high school guidance area. And Whitman's share of that would be $21,000. And the purpose for that is to provide a level of privacy and security for the guidance folks when they're dealing with students either in regular course of events or under stress. I think the argument that Ernie made at our last meeting made some sense. So I'd be inclined to make a motion to support Article 27.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that for discussion.
Motion for a motion by Frank Lanham, second by Dan Salvucci. Discussion?
Yes. Frank, this redesign, that means they want to look at the space and just change things around, right? Is this something that
they're going to move walls and provide a private, secure setting for when they're dealing with mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, mostly when kids are in crisis or having problems.
Okay, basically we did something like that at South Shore Tech. Guess who did it? The kids.
Send them over.
It's something that the kids can do
Good idea.
at
Well,
vocational school.
it's certainly, if that's something that can be done by South Shore Voc, then the appropriation would not have to be spent and that money would return to the general fund. So, but you have to appropriate in order to do it.
Right,
Otherwise-
and of course, South Shore Tech, you have to buy the supplies and the materials and
Right.
stuff. And there's a 10% cost to it. That's their labor cost, right?
So it could save money.
Yeah.
It could wind
It's
up
just
costing
something to
less.
think about. Yeah, something to think about.
In past
Yeah,
discussions, I know Ernie had mentioned that he was going to try to do everything as a cost savings measure to try to do everything possible in house. Whether or not he could team up with South Shore Tech, I don't know. But go ahead, Fred.
I do know that in the past, especially with the tennis court project, South Shore Tech lent quite a hand and worked very well with Ernie and our facility people. So I can't completely speak for him, but I would think that he'd be very open to the idea of the additional help, especially with the cost savings.
Right, and this is, what's the total cost of the entire project?
21 grand.
21 grand is 60% of it. So
Right, exactly. So it's about 35,000, the total project. So, all right, just something.
Close to the 30, but who's counting?
Yeah,
Fred,
whatever.
Fred or Dan, are you willing to have discussions with Ernie if this go ahead if this article passes the vote?
Yeah.
I think if this article passes, Ernie should get a hold of Tom Hickey and talk to them about it and have Tom come and look at the building and see if it's something that South Shore Tech could do. It would be both a learning procedure for the students and a cost savings to the town.
Who's the right person?
I'm writing it down right now. I have a list to talk to Ernie about right off the bat. I wanted to ask him about the rooftop unit because I thought it was reaching a critical juncture. Well, it's not on this list, but it was $100,000. Also, to be able to get a list of the reimbursable projects and what's not completed that we've already approved. So I'm just adding this to the list.
Dan, could Social Votech also install the generators?
I do not know.
No.
No, I don't think so. I'm not, I don't think.
I say no because
Avoid the
they're,
warranty.
well, it's not only that, what they're working with is 400 volts and
Right, plus you
running
need
power
some,
lines underground and
Yeah.
tying into the panels and the sub panels and reconfiguring.
But the Social Votech has an electrical.
yeah, but
school.
you need the heavy duty equipment to pick pick that up and put it on the rooftops and stuff. That's something I don't think we have.
It goes on a concrete pad.
So, I don't know.
A
might be
lot of the generator manufacturers will rig those, drop them right onto the pad that
I
you're.
don't know, it might be something for Ernie to talk to him about.
If you're gonna open up for the demising walls, I'd just ask it. It would be a good learning curve for the electrical kids.
Well,
Exactly.
all I can say, Fred, is I hope it's not near a gas line because I had to put a blast wall in.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion on that?
I forget what we're talking about. Oh, 27.
27, number 7.
All right, so the motion
The
and the second
guidance.
is to approve 21,000 for the reconfiguration of the guidance area at the high school. Motion second is done. I'll take the vote. I'm trying to go out of order here. I don't think I've gone first yet. Dave Cadero, yes. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Frank Bynum,
Yes.
Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Dan Salvucci,
Yes.
Fred Small,
Yes.
Don Essen,
Yes.
Justin Evans.
Yes.
Okay, that's a 8-0 unanimous, number 27. 8-0. Okay. Does anyone? I feel that I as the chairman, I feel like I'm picking favorites if I pick them all. So I guess I'd entertain any motions that the committee wants to bring forth in terms of taking these out of order.
I'd like to make a motion number 18.
There we go. Justin Evans makes a motion on number 18, software for electronic permit technology.
I'll second that.
Second by Frank Lynham. Discussion?
This is something that's so overdue. We've been talking about it for 5 years. We even went so far as to go to Maps Online with an expectation that we would ultimately tie something to it. It didn't happen. It's really something we need just to serve the public, to be able to offer online applications, to be able to provide applications for licensing and permit. I mean, I don't understand how we're not using it.
Yep.
Even Hanson's using it.
Yep.
Ooh.
I think we've had at least one discussion in this committee in regards to these permits, or maybe if not, it's the finance committee. If someone wants to correct me.
Finance committee discussed it last year. I don't know if.
Yeah.
Josh, I have a quick question. What is the cost for the following years? Is this just a one-time upfront cost, or is there also a cost
there's a
going?
maintenance agreement.
Yeah, there's a maintenance cost, but it's not. I mean, obviously, your initial implementation is always more expensive than your annual fees moving forward.
So the article this year includes the maintenance costs, and then following years we'll need to get that into your budget to in Article 2. I'm assuming, correct? I'm for it. I'm just asking the question.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. How much is that? Do you know? The
It'll be
maintenance part of it?
somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000
That's
a
what I
year, I
thought.
think.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say it was. I mean, I don't have the actual quote in front of me. I should have had it in front of me, but I want to say it was ballpark about $5,000 or $6,000 per
A year.
per department per year. That the departments that wanted to actually participate in it. Now, we're just starting off, I think, right now with the building department. But, certainly, I think the Board of Selectmen, as far as licensing goes, and obviously the Board of Health would be the third area of focus. In addition to, obviously, eventually, I'd like to see the the actual dog licensing as well, included with this.
Okay. Any other?
Could you have
It would be
Could
cheaper
you
to
have
ban
any
dogs
sort of-
in town.
could you have any sort of a hybrid rate chart that if they want to do it online, it's an extra $1 or $2, but they can present it in person at town hall and
Some
use that $1 or $2 to recoup?
some towns pay for their permitting operations out of the receipts they take from the permit application at the building department. We already count that in our local receipts. So it would not necessarily increase our revenue. It would shift where it goes, but it's all ultimately coming out of the levy anyway. There are a couple of companies we were looking at, Josh, and
Yeah.
I think there was a question as to whether one might serve us better because they will offer more access for the same amount of licensing. So one will license everything, one will charge a fee per license. And
Yeah,
we'll just have to,
Yeah, sorry. I
Would
don't
we be incurring additional cost for accepting credit cards?
No,
we already do that.
Yeah.
You can charge a person a convenience fee for using a credit card, but you cannot charge it in such a manner that you're making money from it.
True. Yep. I'm gonna forward you the quote so everybody can see it. So you'll see all the actual pricing, and essentially it's definitely in the ballpark of what I had mentioned regarding the different departments that are going to be using it. But this is also very important to the aspect of obviously communicating the needs to all the department heads that need to approve permits as well. So I mean, you're talking about the fire department that may need to be involved in a permit, or the police department, and those sort of workflows are not in place right now. They're basically manual procedures. So essentially, for instance, if someone's going to install a pool in their backyard, but they can't pay their taxes, that shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be able to install a pool if you can't afford your taxes. So, I mean, this is exactly one of those advantages to this system. It's going to tie directly into the financial management system and prevent a permit from being issued if you have back taxes that are owed.
Right. And our bylaw, by the way, requires that we withhold permit approvals for anyone who is past due on taxes or other town fees. There is a provision based on need where the treasurer can negotiate a payment plan that, if it meets her acceptance, will allow them to move forward. But typically, if we catch it, we're going to say, if you want a permit, you have to pay your bill. I'm not saying we always catch it. This will make that a little more likely that we will.
Yeah, unfortunately, if we had a system in place today, it would be a lot easier for the building department, as well as obviously all the individuals out there looking to actually apply for permits and do all that process behind the scenes, because the existing system that we did get a quote on did not have the integration directly with our servicer that we use for credit cards, which obviously now the newer quote that we received regarding the electronic permitting with the new vendor would actually directly integrate with the Unibank, which we use for a servicer right now.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right. We have a motion and a second for Article 18, software for electronic permit, 24,000. Roll call vote. Let's see. Aaron Taylor,
Yes.
Frank Lynham,
Yes.
Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Don Essen,
Yes.
Justin Evans.
He's thinking.
Uh-oh, he's on mute.
You're on mute.
Mute.
Yes, I was on a different screen.
It's a yes. Dave Cordero, yes. Fred Small?
Yes.
Dan Salvucci?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. 18.
Josh, one thing on that. How long will it take to implement it? Do you know?
Again, it's going to vary. Obviously with the situation that's ongoing right now, I don't know how that's going to be, directly affecting, the implementation. But, I would say the initial implementation shouldn't take longer than, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks from what they initially told us.
Great,
Probably be second quarter.
great.
All right. Anybody want to
Would
motion?
you do anything to make a motion, Pete, to reimburse the trail with the
Oh, you're breaking up, Fred. Can you repeat that?
two, chairlift ball, make a motion to approve that. It's something that we
You're gonna have to do it in sign language, Fred.
So we have a motion from Fred for Article 2, reimburse chairlift of all school for $45,000.
I'll second that.
Second
Article
from Justin
P2. P2.
Evans. P2, yep. We have a second from Justin Evans. Discussion.
It has to be done. There's no options there.
And if I understand correctly, the Board of Selectmen of Whitman.
Already committed to this.
Any further discussion? All right. We'll take a roll call vote. Josh McNeil,
Yes.
Dan Salvucci,
Yes.
Ron Essen,
Yes.
Justin Evans,
Yes.
Frank Lynham.
Now I want to keep the money. Yes.
Fred Small.
just in case I'm not working.
I can't say is it a yes?
He says yes.
Dave Taylor, yes. Aaron Taylor.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
I tell your kids to get off their games, Fred. They're using up your Wi-Fi.
8-0.
This is ridiculous for Comcast. Horrible. I have a separate feed and my phone.
All right. Anybody want to present the motion?
Well, do you want to talk about 28?
28.
Do you want to vote on 28, the telephone equipment, or do you want to postpone this one, or what do you want to do?
Me personally, and I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the committee as a whole, but I thought we were going to maybe get some further information on this one.
I agree.
Yeah. I would see Steve Burke maybe join, come before the committee next meeting and can perhaps delve into more discussion, or unless Josh can get more out of them, whichever is easiest.
Yeah, we're waiting. I just talked to Steve again quickly, and we're waiting. They're waiting for an official quote on the cloud. So once they get the official quote on the cloud, we'll be able to delve further into it.
Any time frame on that?
I don't. I'm hoping for next week, but obviously with everything going on, it's tough to say. So hopefully within the next week or so.
All right. I mean, there's no way we're getting through all these articles tonight. Is it okay with everyone if Dawn, you brought it up? The idea of waiting for the second to next week, or if we
No, that's totally fine. If the consensus is to wait, then I'm all for it.
Okay. Anyone disagree with that? Okay.
I actually would like to just make a motion on P7 before we move on.
P7.
That was part of the Madden recommendations and agreement for dissolving the ambulance account.
Well, that's not a capital article. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Yes, P7. I'll second it, Justin.
Okay, we have a motion from Justin, a second from Frank Lynham. Discussion?
This is just to establish an account to begin funding ambulance replacements every 3 years as part of doing away with the old ambulance revenue account and moving to this method.
Makes sense.
That's 250,000.
Yes.
Correct.
Now, what that will do is it will create a sort of a reserve account because it's reserved for appropriation. And each year, the town will vote a sum of money. So the 250 is to start the fund. If he had to buy an ambulance this coming year, he wouldn't have enough money to do it anyway. So next year, we'll be appropriating additional money. And this is a reserve for purchase account. It's intended for capital purchases for the fire department. They're still going to have to make their case each year for what they're looking for and how they want to spend it. And we still will vote ultimately on the article to actually spend the money. So this is really kind of it's a savings account. It's not money we're spending.
Piggy bank for the fire department.
Frank, has a draft warrant been put together in terms of dissolving the ambulance fund?
That's one of the articles. I've been hesitant to circulate the warrant because it was in such bad shape. We had so many things being moved around, but there is an article to rescind the ambulance fund.
Article 10 does the motor vehicle fund, and Article 11 does the ambulance fund.
Yeah. Problem with Article 10 is I still don't have an answer as to how we do that legally. I'm still waiting for that.
Okay. Well,
the ambulance fund is a town meeting vote.
Okay. Now, the number 250, is this number, has this number increased from what the fire chief has requested in the past or initially requested?
No, he never actually made a request. When we started looking at this, it was a 3-year plan to do 150 a year for 3 years to pay for the ambulance. What the chief has pointed out is the capital expenses that are associated with the ambulance still require accumulation of funds before purchases can be made because they're so expensive. The SCBA gear was $110,000 and we had to spend money again the following year. So this will enable us to put aside money for the purpose of supporting the EMS and fire department, but to a lesser degree than the reserve for appropriation ambulance account did.
Okay. The concern I have on this one, on this particular article, is that if you looked at the capital improvement plans guidance provided by the state and the East Bridgewater current capital improvement plan, you can see how they appropriate, they put it in their matrix in terms of ambulance, CVA equipment, and things, and even police vehicles. And you can see how they stagger it out to allow for a consistent dollar value. So instead of having it jump up and down, it looks like they actually, instead of buying 100% of the, let's say turnout gear, they don't buy 100% of the turnout gear each round. They buy a certain amount, so it keeps that large value from drawing from the available funds to be minimized, and it allows it to be consistent. So the purpose of that is you allow for a consistent dollar value amount, and it helps you with your projections for following years. So the issue I have with this one is it seems that it's just another way of another ambulance account, if you might, to be generated. It's just now in a different format, where then it's a large dollar value that affects the budget negatively.
Well, the other option we have is to ask for very specific information in terms of what does an ambulance cost today? When do we plan on buying it? What other equipment is in the pipeline? And set that trend.
Yeah, that would be a great idea because that would then I mean that's essentially what my questions were going to be to department heads once we got past this as part of the preparation of the capital improvement plan in developing that matrix. Does it make sense, Frank, for you maybe to find out if that 200 if Chief Grano anticipates spending 250,000 for the next fiscal year?
We'll find out.
Okay.
All right, then I'll withdraw my second if Justin wants to withdraw his motion, and we'll append it to our next meeting.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. All right. So we have a withdrawal of motion for P7. All right. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I agree.
I haven't had supper yet.
We have 6 articles, which I think, me personally, I think it's a good headway. I think, this is our first time using this technology. Dan, we'll ask you to show up maybe a few minutes early next time.
Well, I was trying to figure out how to get it on my computer.
So if it's the will of this committee, maybe we'll pause there and then take this up at our next meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We need to set a second meeting.
Yeah,
That would be helpful.
Is everybody available next week? And if so, maybe at a different time, maybe even earlier. Now that I know I'm working from home, I don't know what everybody else's schedule is. But, so let's take the first question. Is with the show of hands, is everybody available this week? Next week?
Let me check.
Not available.
We'll have to figure out the time, but
I can do earlier. I'm working from home. Until
I think most of us are.
I'm still out in the field, but I can be back by 3:30 or 4.
Okay. Next week at what time?
What day? Do you want to do it Thursday?
So I'm just looking at the calendar. Next week is the first full week of April. When is the next Board of Selectors meeting? Dan mentioned that.
Tuesday.
Tuesday the 7th.
So you and part of the agenda will be discussing town meeting date.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So I think unless Thursday, unless anyone thinks otherwise.
Thursday works for me.
You want to start at 4 o'clock? It looks like Justin could be there at 4.
4 works.
4 works for anybody. With the show of hands at 4 o'clock, not work for anybody?
Oh, works fine.
You threw a curve in there.
All right. So 4 o'clock works for everyone. So 4, 9, 4 o'clock.
Could you send out a recap of the approved article numbers before next meeting?
Yep.
Sure.
I have 7, not 6.
I have 7 also.
You're correct. 2, 5, 6, 18, 22, and 27.
I have 8 minus 1.
Just a quick note too, I just sent you an email with the electronic permitting quote, so you have the numbers.
Josh, can you forward that to me too? Josh?
John? Yeah, I believe you were on the list.
I'm not on the building list.
Oh, you weren't on the email? Okay, yeah, I'll forward that to you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, we could give it to you, John, but then we'd have to kill you.
I'm for it. I just wanted the information.
All right.
I want you to upgrade your email software too, but all that other stuff.
And there's actually a lot of stuff that still needs to be done, but
I know.
New business. Anybody want to discuss any new business? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, motion.
Second.
Frank motioned. Fred second. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
We're gonna take a roll call.
Stay safe, everyone.
All right, roll call, everybody, 8-0.
Everybody at once yell no, yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I
Thank
will
you,
record
everyone.
the roll call vote.